Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today, two artists reach into the pile of Disney Plus and find out if any of it's worth taking home with you, putting on your shelf. You know what we do. We find out if Moon Knight, the latest Disney Plus show, because we've done every Disney Plus show. So, of course, we pretty much every Marvel Disney Plus show. We've done every Star Wars one. We've done... we've done a lot of the Disney Plus movies that have come out. We haven't done Turning Red, though, but I know me and you both haven't watched that yet. But today we're talking about Moon Knight. And basically, is it the rating system of pre-order it, get it now, wait for a sale, or nope? Here it would be... stream, keep Disney Plus around or whatever. But you know what we're talking about. It's the basic gist of, is this worth the physical media, basically? And how you feeling about Moon Knight, Deshaun? Because I feel like this was a different Disney Plus show, is basically it, because all the other Disney Plus shows were continuations of characters that were already characters, and Moon Knight's the first Disney Plus original. I feel like we got that Netflix vibe back, where we're we're making things up, things are happening.
That's pretty much exactly what I was gonna say. This gave me huge Netflix vibes for the Marvel shows back when we still had those.
Yeah, and it's funny that they're now on Disney Plus. You're like, okay, that's a what a weird world where they were like, let's sell it to Netflix, and then
that's the one I would keep seeing float around to for a while when those Netflix shows were in the midst of airing, was people would throw around Moon Knight a lot as a potential suggestion for one of those types of shows.
Yeah, and I think it would. That's the thing, is I think this show, I think you're right. It feels like the Netflix show, and I think it would have. I think it would have been great with those four other shows. This kind of down to earth New York superhero, but this one's a lot more than that, really, because all the other ones stay in New York, stay in New York, stay in New York for all the Netflix adaptations. Moon Knight was like, nah, we're going international. We're going to Egypt. No way are we holding back. I think that's one of the major ups of this show, is it's not just Moon Knight figuring out how to save New York like 30 other superheroes are, it was hey, we're dealing with Egyptian gods over in Egypt. And I was kind of now you've piqued my interest. I've always been a Moon Knight fan. I think me and you can always say we've liked Moon Knight. I mean, we're Batman guys. So it's very...
So it's an easy crossover. Moon Knight is one of those interesting characters where, even to a greater extent than characters like Daredevil, he's sort of flourished because he's been so obscure and sort of under the radar, aside from general hardcore comic book fans, because he's the amount of times a writer has just come in and just completely experiment with him and sort of upended his own lore is interesting, because he's not really that much of a mainstream character, so you're sort of allowed to just play with him.
So the first time that so some little history for you, because I know a lot of you are probably watching Moon Knight and this is the first time you've heard of Moon Knight and you're kind of falling in love with the character right here. First time that Moon Knight was first put into a comic was 1975, when he was in a Werewolf at Night comic. He was a villain against Werewolf at Night, which was a character in the 70s where they were he's a werewolf, and you're good job, Marvel, you fucking did it. You came up with a character. But I mean, of course that kind of makes sense though, werewolf fighting a Moon Knight, I can see it, I could see what they were up to. And then he of course took on a life of his own and had his own book by 1980 was the first one. So 5 years, and then he was on his own book, which is pretty big for a character that just popped up in also a side comic, where Werewolf at Night was not fucking selling lots of books, so it's it was pretty good for that comic.
It was definitely one of those things where because a lot of comic book success started in horror books, and then the comics code kind of fucked them over. You could see them in the 70s and 80s trying to crawl back to be we want to do horror books, please. But then at that point, the market had completely shifted to solely superhero stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that Marvel doesn't. doesn't have many straight horror stories now. I would say DC is not afraid to fucking just be like, we're doing a horror book, you know, like, and I think that Marvel definitely has its horror elements, absolutely, no question. Overall, in like its universe has horror elements. I mean, even what's the event where they just like plucked a god's eye and then we're seeing shit from the eyeball the whole time? That was crazy.
Original Sin, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. And sorry guys, we're not huge Marvel guys. So but we're still Marvel. We'd still outclass most of you. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure somebody's like,
we know more than
you,
the average Joe who's only watched the movies. But as far as like history and stuff, we lean more on the DC side.
Yeah. But basically, I've liked Moon Knight for a long time. He had some Civil War presence when I got into Civil War. There was some Moon Knight spinoff with him, and then of course he gets mixed in with so many teams. So it's like one of those things that if you're a regular comic book reader, you know Moon Knight because he's on things. You know, he'll just show up and kind of be crazy, and
he's always sort of the fun wild card. Every time he would show up on a team, pretty much everyone would be like, "This dude is a lot."
Yeah, right. Now you're right though. They put some big powerhouses on Moon Knight after a while. They like decided that he needed this like big roster basically. And basically in volume 4 we have Doug Monick, and then Brian Michael Bendis takes over the next time, then Warren Ellis takes over the next run, then volume 8 is Jeff Lemire. You know, like it's just and I think volume 9 right now is Jed McKay, which I've heard great things about. And it's just one of those things that you're just like, holy crap, what a lineup of people here, because that's like a Batman lineup. That's a Spider-Man lineup that you're lining
it's in the
up
same
there,
way that,
you know?
like, when you look at the Daredevil runs, like the fucking names that they just throw at that with like Frank Miller to Ed Brubaker to Bendis to it just keeps on
Kevin
going
Smith to
Mark
like, you know,
Waid.
like to Mark Waid. Like, yeah, it really it gets kind of crazy. And I think that shows the power of this character is that Moon Knight, even though he's most of the time considered by many a street level hero, which is first off ridiculous because he's powered by a god, you know, like it's like if you're thinking of Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and
the
like
fun thing is it's like
even Iron Fist fell out of place there, you know,
he's
like
powered by a god, but is he though? Because the comics constantly play where it's just like, does this dude actually have mystical powers or is he just nuts?
I know, and they sort of do that in this show too. Is that like, I mean, they say spoilers, guys. So watch this show, and then come back. Is basically my like small review. Is basically watch this show because it is such a cool, interesting, different take on a superhero. You know, like I think that this is it could have been really cheesy. I think that's basically my huge review of this. My simple review of Moon Knight is that this, with a lesser main actors and lesser direction and writing, this would have been cheesy. This wouldn't have worked, but it does. They are able. First off, Oscar Isaac is amazing in the role. I think that's the number one thing about this show. If you love Oscar Isaac, you're gonna want to watch this show. He's just having so much fun. He's just having a good fucking time. Like, I don't know if anybody else who's had this good of a time on screen than Oscar Isaac, you know, like he's just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna have a good time. And I was really I mean, it's funny because I know people were making fun of the show because they were like, I can't stand his British accent because, and then it like the twist is that it's supposed to not be real sounding, you know, like, and you're like, oh, like, and I really enjoyed that like even the little mistakes that you thought were going on were built in, you know, like, and well done. And I think that they say it in there, and I'll say it again, is that like he says, really, Steven, you're my only superpower. So in this show, they're kind of alluding that Khonshu gives him all his powers, and really it's just the dissociativeness that lets Khonshu also break into him constantly. And but in the comics, they kind of imply that Mark was normal until Khonshu split his brain, but that wasn't found out until like later, you know, like, and then now in the comics, there, like you're saying, there's this very I think this was introduced in Jeff Lemire's run, is that like, is Mark Spector / Jake Lockley / Stephen Grant / Mr. Knight, you know, like it's really him, you know, like, and it's not really Khonshu that's doing all this. Khonshu has to kind of wrangle him in all the time in the books. And I like that too, you know, like Khonshu being like, Jesus Christ, like, I'm just trying to exact some justice. Like,
it's interesting the characters who have had, like, as far as comics are concerned, retroactive DID to sort of explain weird retcons and sort of shifting continuity, because the Hulk books also have been playing with this, and they really lean into it with Hulk, where it's just like every version of the Hulk, from like the dumb, brutish one to the smart, eloquent one to the mobster one, are all just different personalities.
And they used to play with they played with that even back after Civil War, that Bruce Banner doesn't remember who Peter Parker is, but Hulk does. You know, Hulk remembers, because you made everyone forget, but you didn't make Hulk forget, is what Hulk says there. And it's kind of this moment there where you're like, wait, is Hulk a literal different person? And then, of course, in Immortal Hulk, they're like, let's fucking amp that to 12. And you're like, oh, fuck. And I do, the thing is that dissociative disorder has been it's kind of a questionable. I'm not a doctor, so don't fucking take what I'm saying. But it's a questionable disease because it's been proven that it's not really what's happening. There's not like actual different personalities. The basis of like what the show is doing, that it's a regression thing, it's a safety thing, is real. You know, like that's real, of like, you know, making another personality, another person inside you to complete, you know, like cut yourself off from a trauma. But is this like flip-flopping person thing a real thing? No. You know, like it's not, it's something that was made up in the 80s to kind of explain other mental illness. And it's a hard thing, because of course people are going through something like dissociative disorder where they're like completely different people, you know, like, but I think that I think as we progress in science, there's better words for it. And I worry that, of course, media that pushes a false scientific narrative that like this does exist. But of course it's different with Moon Knight, because they're trying to be like, you know, like there's these other people locked inside of him. So it's like a cool comic booky thing. But I just want to like point out that it's not a thing.
Thing with Hulk.
Yeah, it's like, it's one of those things that's cool comic booky, but is it real?
They also, they even sort of get away with that in Split, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. Mostly because they reveal that it's an Unbreakable sequel at the end. So you're just like, oh, so we're playing with like hero logic now.
Yes, instead of like science. So I just want to point that out. Do your own research on it, please, guys. Like, actually look into this. That it's not. It's, you know, there's some evidence that like there's different words for this. There's different phrases. There's different ways to categorize this than DID, which is what we'll kind of associate. We'll say here,
refer
is what
to
it
as
is.
Shorthand.
Yeah, we'll refer to it as dissociative identity disorder here. And that's what they refer to in the comics, and that's what they refer to it in the show here. But is it real? Big a shrug. But basically, to get back to the actual point, Oscar Isaac's fantastic in the role, playing all the personalities here, all 5 different like Moon Knight characters he gets to play here, and that's fucking sick, you know, like it's just cool. And I wonder if anybody else could have done this without it feeling cheesy, you know, like I think Oscar Isaac brings this legitimacy to it and really elevates it.
The whole show strikes this really good balance of just like, this is like a dark Avenger type character. He's an assassin for an Egyptian god. But also, look, he's talking in a silly voice, and they're sort of making fun of themselves. And look, that's a talking hippo.
Yeah, right. It's definitely, it's got a good sense of humor about itself, knowing that it's sort of ridiculous, and I kind of enjoy that.
But without it feeling like the typical MCU like movie thing where you're just afraid to be genuine and you just want to undermine your point with a joke.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I don't feel that vibe from the Miss Marvel show coming up. I'm not getting that, you know, that they're like, we're changing it, but it's still authentic because we're telling an authentic story. It's like, nah, this looks like this doesn't look like it's for me. So I'm not even gonna fucking criticize it for real. I won't. It's not for me. It's for kids. You know, like it might work for that whole crowd that's missing their Zoe 101 or their iCarly, you know, and they have to watch the new series of iCarly. And
starving
like,
for Disney Channel original movies.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it's like, and you know, without the Camp Rocks of the world and the High School Musicals, you got to have something. And Disney's like, well, I got you. Let me make some Disney Plus stuff that's actually for kids, which I actually appreciate. I will say that. I kind of appreciate them actually making a Marvel show that's for kids instead of like bending to the needs of all the 30 and 40-year-olds being like, but it's not for me. And you're like, well, Moon Knight's for you, so shut the fuck up.
True. But I'm still not like huge on the execution as someone who really likes Kamala Khan as a character.
Yes, I agree. I agree. As somebody who likes the character, you're like, ooh, ooh. It's one of those things that you're like, you could have done Squirrel Girl like this, and I would have been like, sick. You know,
sure,
like
perfect. That's the right way to do it,
right? Or something. There's plenty of other female characters that it would have worked, like this kid show.
Especially since we've already fumbled the bag on Carol, so I'm like, we about to fuck up the whole Marvel line,
right? Just ruin them. So the other big there's two other great characters in this show. Of course, Ethan Hawke, our boy, our fucking man, the fucking king upon kings. Ethan Hawke fucking is doing a great job in this show. Sure, his Mandarin is kind of but he's fucking doing a great job, you know, like it's like, and he tried, you know, like he tried to do the Mandarin well. Did they do well? No, but that's okay. You know, like they were trying, and I kind of dig this villain is really it, is that you could see why Ethan Hawke was like, okay, if I'm going to play a Marvel villain, this is a cool one to play, you know, where it's like he I think that's the great thing about it is that as a character, Arthur Harrow, which I love that they brought in Harrow as a villain. Harrow as a villain, because it's like he's one of Moon Knight's main dudes. It's one of those things that, like, thank God they did it, and they've done it right by having Ethan Hawke on it. And it's great because he's the most morally gray fucking villain that like any of the Marvel, like even kind of outdoes Thanos here, because Thanos is just like, yeah, we're gonna fucking wipe out half the people no matter what, you know, and you're like, still genocide. But at least Arthur Harrow is like, yo, I'm gonna get rid of all the bad people. Even if they haven't done anything yet, we're gonna get rid of the bad people. And like, of course, that brings up the argument. It's like, well, if you know they're gonna commit bad, but they haven't committed it yet, are they bad? You know, like it's like it's a question. And I definitely like this because it's like one of those things where it's like, you're like, oh, you're like, it's yes, you know, like you're like, Khonshu, you're right. Question mark, you know, like in this battle of like only punish the people who are actually did something instead of trying to be like, let's just take out everybody who's ever going to do something bad. You're like,
yeah. But then we establish later on that, like, yeah, you can balance your scales and change. It's not set in stone.
Yeah, exactly. They are able to fix their wobbly scales by like connecting together, and you're kind of like, so it's not always predestined, and you guys are just deciding that the scales are the way they are right now, like, and you're just like, well, that's kind of fucked up. And so I think that's one of the great parts about this show is we got a great morally gray villain, played by Ethan Hawke, who's fucking fantastic, and he doesn't have any like thank God they didn't do a blue light in the sky, like type of thing. So
I was
like,
waiting for it. As soon as like the lightning started gathering around the pyramid and stuff, I'm like, oh boy, something about to shoot in the sky.
Yeah, I was like, here it comes. But like, thank God they just kind of like, they go the kaiju route, which I'm liking this trend of like all the superhero shows ending with a fucking kaiju fight. I'm like, yes. Thank you. This is good stuff. And really, it's actually a really cool like kaiju fight at the end there. I kind of really liked it. It was one of those things that I was like, oh, they're doing a kaiju fight. Let's see if it's any good. And then I was like, now we're talking. When they're doing that like wide shot of them swinging at each other, I was like, this looks good for a TV show, guys. This looks fucking good for a TV show. Like you're like, there's several. That I would say that is that Moon Knight looks exceptional the whole time. There's no weird like Black Widow moments where I'm like that green screen is ass, or like it's actually quite gorgeous the whole time.
I think like some instances of when he's transforming are a little like, those are CG bandages and they look like CG
but it
bandages.
Kind of looks cool.
But
it taking him over.
The
I'm
light,
like, okay.
the glowing eyes. I love that they actually went with a mummy motif for like the traditional Moon Knight costume. I thought that was very clever. And I like that they found a way, because you decided to use Steven as another personality, that you had an excuse to do the Warren Ellis costume with the white suit.
Yeah, right. I was like sick. And I also I think my favorite little bit is that how much they worked in Mr. Knight here. It like, and the way he looked the whole time, like the white suit is just epic. You're just like, all right. You're like, oh, all right, this is cool.
Just like, it's a post Deadpool world. We can make this look good.
Yes, exactly. In a world where the Deadpool suit was completely like, in person, no CGI except for the eyes. You're like, let's fucking do this, I will say it's very like, my only like weird thing about this show is that it's definitely like, how powerful is Moon Knight here? Like that's definitely questioned a few times. You're like, oh, he's powerful enough to take on all these guys all at the same time. And he can do all these different things. And then other times it's like, oh, no, he was shot. He's down, like, and it's like, and you're like, you're like, okay, sometimes he's an all powerful guy. And other times you're like, oh, he took a hit like a person. All right.
Like, and then in the final act, he's basically like almost unstoppable, flying through the air and shit.
I did like that. But I do like that they kind of like hide the god tier mode behind Jake Lockley, like that they were and as a comic book reader, I will say that's one of the major things that I loved about this show is that they never specifically until the end show you Jacob Lockley or even say that there's a third personality, but there's definitely tons of visual clues, like, and they even say it to each other, like, did you do that, Mark? And he's like, did you do that, Steven? And like, they don't fucking, like they're not even like crossing paths and like, with Jake. And I love that because it was one of those things that as a comic book reader, you knew Jake was coming, but like, you're kind of like, oh, like when they showed the sarcophagus when he's like going through all the doors, I was like, there he is. There's the boy. Like you're like, there he is. He's hiding. And then to break him out at the end just makes you go, oh yeah. I have heard some sad news that we might not be getting a season 2 for this. That this was kind of a limited series, and that they might bring Moon Knight into other things, but that's kind of it.
They seem to be jumping back and forth on it because they initially said from the jump that this was a limited series.
Yeah.
And now they've walked back on that and said that it's just a series, maybe season 1. So they keep going back to it because it got brought up because of the way the Emmys do their awards for like seasons versus like limited series. And they're arguing whether or not they're eligible because they keep like going back and forth as to what it's supposed to be termed as.
Oh.
So it seems very much like this was supposed to be a mini series, and then they're just like, "This is kind of dope, though. Maybe
this is kind of dope, though," and especially because I think the other thing is that they were able to bring in like all the Egyptian gods without this feeling too stuffed, and but also bringing in all the Egyptian gods makes you raise a question, you know, like if we got Norse gods and Egyptian gods, you know, like, and you're like, oh shit, you know, like it's all these, you're like, we could go so much deeper in all these things. And of course, you know, like Marvel has already done it. So you're kind of like, you know,
I feel like an easy tie-in because, I mean, one of the advantages of the show is that it feels so much in its own bubble compared to like the rest of the MCU stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like little stuff could have helped just to like help it feel more a part of the same universe. Not that I needed it, but just the simple fact of Bast is like the Black Panther god, which is based on Bastet, which is an Egyptian deity. I feel like we could have tied it to Black Panther subtly without being like, hey guys, look,
Black Panther.
It's tied to Black Panther. But it could have just been a subtle like, if you know what you're looking for.
I do want to bring up before we move on to like the ideas for the spinoff, because it's gonna lead into it, is that my other favorite character in this, other than Khonshu, I think that F.Murray Abraham did a fantastic job as the voice of Khonshu.
F.Murray Abraham did a fantastic job in something. What a shock.
Like huge surprise. But May Kalamwai, or the actress who plays Layla, is fantastic in this fucking show. It's one of those things that I was like, are they going to be able to carry this? After seeing the first episode, I was like, are they going to be able to carry this show? You know, like, because I liked it, but I was kind of like, where are we going? You know, like, and then they bring in Layla in the next episode, and I was like, now we got it. Now I see what you guys are doing. And I think that Layla is such a nice addition to the show, and then her being badass at the end as the Scarlet
Scarab.
Is dope. It's really dope, and it's one of those things that she's the obvious spin-off, but you're kind of like, don't do that. Like you're like don't do that. It's kind of like what they're doing with Echo, where you're like, Echo's not a big enough character for you to do a whole show.
At least with this one, like this makes a lot more sense than Echo. Echo's such a weird, like, what? Okay, sure.
Yeah. It's one of those things that she must be a delight behind the scenes, because they must have been like, yeah, we'll do a whole show with you, fine, you know, like, and they were like, and that's how they greenlit Echo. They were like, you're great, let's go. But like, I think Layla here is a fantastic character and a great ad, and there's so much more to go with that, you know, like, because they just kind of like they just play it up here. Now, I do want to say that I don't think that would be a good spin-off show. You know, you got to do more than just that. Same as Echo. It's like, I have no fucking clue how they're going to do Echo, and without like making it actually somebody else's show, you know?
What's wrong with two lead badasses?
Yes, true, exactly. I would rather no spinoff, just Moon Knight season 2 with these two at like full power. You know, like I would rather.
I feel like we're always afraid to kind of do that if you think about it with the MCU, because you would think like Iron Man 2 onwards is like, okay, this will be the Tony and Rhodey show, and then fucking Rhodey's completely nerfed in Iron Man 3 and barely contributes anything.
Yep. And
then you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp, and you're like, okay, they literally changed the title for it. Now it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Why? Steve feels like he doesn't even need to be here.
It's true. It's true. It's one of those things that it's like you could make Moon Knight and somebody else. You know, like, you know, what did you say her superhero name was again? Sorry.
Scarlet Scarab.
Scarlet Scarab. It's like, you could do Moon Knight and Scarlet Scarab as a show to, you know, keep your limited series status for the Emmys, and then, you know, go over to something else. But I I don't think that's the right approach. What I think, obviously, you do Moon Knight, and then you do Moon Knight teaming up with other people, because that's where we said it already early in this episode. Moon Knight on teams is how we got into Moon Knight. Like is being like, oh, who's that badass looking guy in the corner? And that's really it. Like is that Moon Knight has aesthetically just a badass presence and look.
One of the things, and I wonder if this speaks to like them wanting to keep this on their own, or maybe them feeling like it's too out there and being afraid to cross it over with stuff.
Yes.
But you've seen, there have been several articles out about how several times they would try to tie it into heavier MCU stuff, and they decided against it. Like one of the ideas that they had was to have a Black Knight from Eternals show up in it.
Yeah,
to
right.
sort of tie into like Kit Harington's character in that. So you're like, okay. That makes sense. We're dealing with two different like mythologies and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that this is why this is such an interesting show, is that this doesn't connect to anything else. Like they don't even mention the fucking blip, which I thought they might. Like they're like, Steven, you've gotten this job since the blip, but like you could lose your job at the shop. Like that would have been like super simple, way to do it, but they were just like, no, we ain't fucking dealing with any Marvel characters at all. Like, and it even says on IMDb, this is the first Marvel Studios series not to include any previously established characters. And you're like, that's a fucking swing, Marvel, to do in the first place. It almost feels brave for them, because they're such cowards about this stuff that they'll usually be like, okay, we're doing Guardians of the Galaxy, but it's got all these different characters that you love in it. Don't worry,
it's got Thanos set up. It's important.
Yeah, it's important. And now with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, they're like, there's gonna be Thor there. Don't worry. Like even with Thor 3, they're like, there's gonna be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like, like they've started to really meld them, which I'm not against. I'm really not. That's the way I love my Marvel comics. All of them just like
3 Spider-Man
living and
movies,
breathing.
basically.
Yeah, I want them living and breathing, like I want it all to feel alive. But that's why it's interesting that this Moon Knight didn't even feel the need to.
But also in comics, you just get those runs that are just in their own bubble. That we're just doing our own thing over here, because you get those writers who are just like, I don't give a shit what's going on. That was like Brian Azzarello's like joke when we talked to him with his Wonder Woman run. Like Wonder Woman would do all this Justice League shit, and it would have nothing to do with his Wonder Woman run. Just like, I don't care what everyone else is doing. The closest thing I'll do is I'll have Orion from the New Gods show up.
Right, and he'll be like, hey, and you'll be like, sick. Like, I'm glad he's here. I do think it's funny, though, that the small changes that they made to Moon Knight to make him work here, like, even if it's changing every time. Because, like we said earlier, I was like, oh, he's just another New York superhero. That's in the comics. Here in the show, they were like, London. They were like, nope, he's in London. And I think that's kind of interesting, like you're like, okay, we finally have a British fucking like setting for this show, which is kind of wild, like,
it's because like Captain Carter's like a what if character and sort of in their own bubble,
right?
And we haven't done Captain Britain yet, so
which, okay, before we go any further, I haven't seen Multiverse of Madness yet. Deshaun has. Sorry, guys. So I will not be saying any spoilers today. I don't know if Deshaun just did, but we will not be talking any spoilers. No, he kept it clean. He said what if. She's a what if character, so no, it's clean. But I still haven't seen it yet, but I do want to say, like I say for every fucking Marvel thing, you're all terrible at spoilers. Fuck you. No, not you. The spoiler behind you. Fuck you. Because they can't handle themselves. People will post on Facebook memes of literal spoilers. Reddit can't handle themselves. Facebook can't handle themselves. Twitter can't handle myself. How the fuck am I supposed to live and do my like posting of Gundams and the podcast and everything without you guys spoiling shit? Like, God damn it.
Yeah,
like,
I told you when I got out.
You did. You were right. You were so right. Like, you were immediately like, you got to see it soon because they're going to spoil it. And nobody can fucking handle themselves, man.
It was ridiculous, dude.
Not even the office group that I was in could handle itself, and I was pissed, bro. I was fucking pissed. I'm like, this is an office group, and you fucking spoiled Multiverse of Madness for me. Go fuck yourselves. You know, like, I was just like, God damn it.
I came out and immediately was just like, okay, now that I've seen it, let me watch some like reviews from like YouTubers I like.
Yeah.
I watched like one fucking video and immediately the recommends was just like, here's this spoiler, here's this spoiler, here's this fucking spoiler. You're just like, well,
dang.
All right. Good thing I didn't decide to see what everyone was thinking about it before I saw it.
And I will say that about Moon Knight too, is I love Moon Knight, but I was like, I would watch it the next day or something like that. People would have memes about this show, which I to be fair, I think we've already said it. This is a very memeable show. I feel like out of all the Marvel properties in general are very memeable, and they all have classic memes. But Moon Knight felt like it was a treasure trove. It was just full of shit, you know, like I saw especially a lot of memes where it's just two Oscar Isaacs, and they're like my favorite of the memes I saw was two Oscar Isaacs, and they were like the you and the girl and the guy she tells you not to worry about, and it's just both Oscar Isaac, and you're like, hey,
yeah.
Like, and I like that, you know, like, and I also kind of love that like love story going on there, because like it's interesting. I feel, you know, you feel for Layla here, where she hasn't known where her husband is for super long time. She finally finds him. He thinks he's another person, and she realizes that she likes that person too, you know, like, because obviously it's her husband, you know, like, and like, yeah, he's different, but it's him still, you know, like, and it's like, I thought that was kind of a great like moral dilemma going on. And of course, Mark and Steve fight each other over it. But in like reality, it's like for Layla, it's like, oh, my sick husband just, you know, is confused, you know, like it's like, so it's like, I kind of like that story of Layla being like strong and understanding, you know, like I know a lot of people were like, oh, she's cheating on Mark, and you're like, shut the fuck up, it's still her husband, you know, like,
yeah,
you're like,
but
shut
I do like
up.
that they sort of like play with that,
yeah,
with like Mark being a little jealous, just like, what, you in love with my wife?
Yeah, right. You in love with my wife? And like, I also love that, like, even though they were fighting, the next time they saw each other in the psych ward, they hugged each other. Like, they're, you know, like, that was another huge meme I saw, when they're like, when you cheat on your wife, and it was like somebody yelling, and then when the boy cheats on your wife and they hug each other, and you're like, God damn.
It's been so good material. I've seen several ones with just the world scrolling. I sent you one yesterday. I've seen one where it's just like, hold up, I got a meme for this, and it's just like thousands of images.
I gotta say that not only is that scene iconic, it's cool as fuck, you know, like him really searching all the night skies. It's like you already kind of were like, oh, this is not a street level superhero, and then Khonshu's like, let me just rewind the sky, and you're like, oh, you know, like you're like, oh, we've gotten into the god shit, you know, like we've really dipped into the, like, we are dealing with gods, you know, like, and you're like, oh, okay. And then the next two episodes are like, we will not slow down with that. And I think that's where I can understand some people's frustration with the show if they were liking the first half and they were like, oh, this memento, like finding out what's going on with my life type of thing going on is quite cool. And then they like amp it up to the Egyptian god stuff when they kind of dump the memento but they don't really dump the memento stuff, because I feel like episode 5 is quite the episode. I will say that is that in a world where every Marvel show feels the need to be lighthearted, where like WandaVision was like being like, okay, we're gonna deal with loss, you know, like that was like, that felt like a big thing, was like we had a Marvel show dealing with loss, you know, like and here it's like they actually were able to deal with like abuse here in actually a very respectful way, without it feeling disrespectful to the character and also disrespectful to victims of abuse like this, you know, like I thought that episode 5 was kind of a big moment for me, because I was like, oh yeah, you know, Moon Knight, I've been liking it so far. And then episode 5, I was like, is this a serious show? I was like, is this a very serious show? Like, what the fuck just happened there? And I think 5 and 6 are actually fantastic episodes, and they live together instead of like a lot of the Marvel shows end on this big action beat, you know, like because they want to do that like 30 minutes of action, but they slap it into an episode at the end. Like they would a movie, they would have that 30-minute action set piece at the end. And here they're like shoving it into a show that's only 45 minutes. So they kind of have like 10 minutes of setup and then dump you into the action set piece. They did a great job here of setting it up, I feel like, where it didn't feel like Captain America, Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it just felt like it came out of fucking nowhere, you know, like the final fight scene. And of course, White Vision versus Vision was also felt kind of like, well, this is a very thoughtful show. Why are we punching each other? You know, like, you know, like we're like, you know, like, and I feel like this feels more organic. I felt like this whole show felt more organic than most of the Marvel shows, I would say.
It felt more like the stronger Netflix shows.
Yeah, I will say I don't know if it's my favorite Disney Plus show yet. You know, like I still, it's hard. You know, I think that in a world where we have so many great Disney Plus shows, it's kind of interesting. You know, like you're like, okay, all right, let's see all these different ones.
They definitely have something planned for Daredevil.
Yes. Oh, I mean, yeah. If he was in Spider-Man,
he was in Spider-Man. It's the one they've pushed the most. When they made the move to Disney Plus, they made a brand new featurette for it specifically for Disney Plus. Yeah, like a small little thing. So I'm just like, if you're going out of your way to make like new content for it when you don't have to, when you didn't originally make this, it tells me that you have something.
Now I will say that like. I was a big fan of WandaVision, and I did like What If, and I did like Hawkeye because it was a pretty down-to-earth thing. So, like, Moon Knight is pretty much up there as the best of the Disney Plus shows, is what I would say. I'd say it's definitely up there.
I think I still enjoy, like, Hawkeye the most just because I felt like it's nice, it's relatively street level, it's fun, and it doesn't bite off more than it can chew. But this one is like going for something a little more ambitious.
Yeah, I will say I took a break after episode 4 and then came back for 5 and 6. And I definitely didn't do that for Hawkeye. I kind of like stormed through it all. So I will say that. Now, comparing it to the Netflix shows, which I do still think, Daredevil, Punisher, and the first season of Jessica Jones are better than most of the Disney Plus shows. I will say.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would say that. Now, like I think that what's good about this is it's a step towards that. You know, like that. Even I'm comparing it to those 3 shows. Shows you what this show is really and what we're kind of heading towards. Because I feel like these first Disney Plus shows were kind of like, oh, we want to make them phase 4 things, but we don't want to make a movie, you know, like, and we gotta, amp up our Disney Plus service. And I think that that's kind of what was going on here, was that they were not original properties. They were, they weren't working on new things. They were continuing stuff, which is not a bad thing. But I kind of like this a lot more of just being like, fuck that other shit. Let's make our own hero at the moment, and of course, we've talked about it, and we have a whole episode about it. Hero origins are hard. And I feel like this Moon Knight was able to do his origins without feeling like an origin story. 1. And 2, it does his origins without feeling, it feels organic, it felt like it worked. I feel like the only kind of like missing plot hole that they like don't really get into is the beginning of Mark working for like the CIA and the mercenaries and stuff like that. They don't really touch on that. And I feel like it's sort of a missing puzzle because Steven's so against it all, and Jacob obviously is the real killer, and you're kind of like, you're like, so when did Mark start and when did he get picked up for the CIA and all that shit? You know?
Yeah,
like,
I also question like how Steven was even able to like get a job at the museum, etc.
Right?
Since it's sort of like ambiguous as to like when and when they don't switch, because clearly Mark must have worked at the museum a day in Steve's stead in order to like flirt with that coworker and set up a date that Steven didn't know about.
Right. Well, I think they did a good job here of being like, it's not even clear to Mark or Steven when and who's in control.
Yeah.
Or Khonshu, you know, like Khonshu was like, why is the idiot in charge again? He says in the second episode, in the first episode.
And I do like Khonshu getting away with reneging his deal. Where it's just like, okay, you two are free, but there's this other guy who technically isn't.
Right. I do. I kind of like this Khonshu because they've definitely, you could have just gone with like this, godly figure doing the right and being very stick to the rules. But we kind of have this like mob boss Khonshu here, you know, where he's just like, no, I'm here to get things done. I'm gonna fucking whack some motherfuckers, you know, like, and like, especially at the end, they play up like they do the Godfather, you know, of him in the car, you know, like
in the car, he's literally wearing like a suit and tie. Yeah,
he's wearing he's wearing Mr. Knight's outfit, which I thought was interesting, you know, in a where it's like he's wearing Mr. Knight's outfit, kind of like Khonshu was like, Mr. Knight's got some fucking style, you know. Like he's like that guy. He may be stupid,
because he was wearing the bandages before. I love every time Khonshu shows up. It's like, okay, time to judge.
It's true. I also it's like he kind of just breaks the rules and does whatever, and he kind of disrespects the other gods, and I kind of dig that. I kind of dig this like. Instead of like trying to be part of the pantheon or something like that, like all the Norse gods were, this was very much like, nope, I'm an outsider. Fuck you. You know, like, fuck this. I'm gonna do what I think is right, and you're all wrong. You know, like, and I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh shit. Now, it's funny because I think that. It's a great show, great actors. I think there's some things missing here, but overall, this is one of the best Disney Plus shows. Even if we have some nitpicky things, but overall, this is cool, and I mostly just want more Moon Knight. And it's like kind of sad that if it is a limited series, you know, like I know Oscar Isaac said it last week that he was like, oh no, it's a limited series, but I don't think he even knows. Who knows, you know, like,
yeah. And I think that's a matter of how much Disney comes at him with a paycheck, how big that paycheck is. Because I sort of get it, because he already had like sort of like big franchise fatigue, like post
Star
sequel
Wars
trilogy, and he was already like really down on that. So I imagine even if it's like, oh, but this is the Marvel side of Disney, might have been a hard pitch for him until they're just like, yeah, but it's weird and out there, so you'll like it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I kind of like from this, is that we got two like indie stars. You got Oscar Isaac and Ethan Hawke in this Marvel role, which is huge, you know, like, and kind of doing an indie Marvel project, you know, like, sure, there's the big kaiju fight at the end, but overall, this is a very low budget show, you know, like, but I think they're able to execute it on a great level most of the time. You know, nothing stands out as being like, that was terrible CGI. Even the dog creatures, that Anubis creatures that are trying to kill him at the beginning, don't look bad. You know, like, which you would think those would be the creatures that they wouldn't spend any fucking money on. But
they're also very careful about the way they show them.
Yeah, right. They were very like in the shadows.
They're very in the shadows and stuff. They're very aware of like what their limitations actually are.
Which I think comes with the experience of doing all these Marvel shit. You know, they're like, well, we got to hide these creatures now so that way they don't stand out in the broad daylight with the CGI. You know, that's what looks bad. I think they've learned that. I think that was shown a little bit in In Eternals, Shang-Chi definitely was like, nah, we're going full bright daylight at the end. But earlier they were like, no, we'll keep things in the dark. So it's something I think they're learning, like to keep the creatures hidden and stuff like that, so you don't end up with weird shit like Black Widow's green screen or even Shang-Chi's
anything in the CW shows.
Yeah, anything in the CW. So it's like I love Shang-Chi, but definitely the worst CGI in the movie is when they're like towards the end with the whole fight scene. That's like some of the best CGI intermixed with some of the worst, which is like it's kind of rough. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, it's very much like everything going on with like Shang-Chi fighting his dad is like dope and anime as fuck, and then the actual like war battle over here is super hit and miss.
Exactly. But is there anything else you want to say about Moon Knight before we kind of close it out?
No, I don't think so. I think it is interesting that like the one show that feels the most appealing for multiple seasons is the one they push the most as like a limited series.
Right.
Because
because
like WandaVision was obviously just like a one and done thing. Falcon and Winter Soldier was pretty much just a bridge to Captain America 4.
Yep.
Like Loki honestly probably should have just been in a limited series, but they're giving it multiple seasons.
Yeah, that's the one that felt the most like a bridge, and for some reason we're still getting a lot more other seasons. Like you're like,
and like
okay.
Hawkeye's also more of like a transitional one.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, no, that's a limited series. There's no way they do like a Hawkeye season 2. Even how popular it was, there's just no way. I hope like maybe that's why they're thinking we should do Echo, because then they can like still do Hawkeye, but not.
Yeah, I've also heard rumblings that they want to just do a Black Widow sequel, but with Florence Pugh and the new Hawkeye. That I'm more down for. I'm up for that.
I'm super down for that. I would go see that in theaters. Absolutely. You're telling me Florence Poe and Haley Steinfeld on the big screen? Hell yeah, bro. Hell yeah.
They already had a great dynamic when they interacted in that show.
That was
she was so
damn funny in that. She was so damn funny in that. You're like, holy shit. It's one of those things where you're so used to her being serious in movies that you're like, she's fucking hilarious.
But the movies have an advantage, mostly because of just actor contracts and stuff, and people just aging out of the roles, to actually make like generational shifts and transitions actually stick in a way that comics can't, because they're too iconic. Bruce Wayne can't stay dead forever. You got to bring Bruce Wayne back.
And it's one of those things that Marvel is very much set on moving forward, like in a world where comics will be like, nah, we'll just retcon and Spider-Man is okay now, they very much Marvel is like, no, we are moving forward. DC's like, we're gonna start another alternate universe where the Batman's different from the other shit. Fuck you. Which again, I will say, totally okay. I'm totally okay with a bunch of different fucking universes.
It's okay with that. You think I'm gonna complain that I have 3 different Batmans running around right now? I don't give a shit.
No, I don't give a shit, bro. Give me more Batman. You're like, nah. Give me more Batman. Exactly. I can't wait for the fucking. We have an audiobook going on that's the #1 audiobook right now. That's a Batman.
Yeah, I want to listen to that.
We have a new animated show coming, which has an all-star fucking cast behind it, and then we have the Batman 2 confirmed. It's a good day to be a Batman fan. Is basically it.
If Unburied is half as good as like the Marvel audio dramas that they did for Stitcher for Wolverine, those were fucking dope.
Yeah.
So if the Batman one on Spotify is half as good as like that, I'm gonna be so into it.
It's on Spotify? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's like
I was like an audiobook.
It's like a Spotify audio drama.
Weird. So it's free? That's fucking wild. Unless, free if you have a Spotify, of course. That's how they fucking get you. I'm gonna fucking subscribe right now while we're finishing up this episode. Batman Unburied. Fuck yeah. There he is. Oh, it's free. Fuck yeah. Look at that.
I would also recommend those Wolverine ones that Stitcher did. I don't think it's only on Stitcher now. I think
they're only 30 minutes long too.
Yeah.
Oh damn! I'm gonna fucking slam through this thing.
Listening to the Wolverine Stitcher one was like the transition for me to finally give audiobooks a shot.
Yeah, right. It finally made you be like, I can listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
And it helps that these are like full cast, full
Exactly.
sound effects, full everything, which we might be working on something like that, guys. If you're into that sort of thing, which I think you are, we might be working on something like that. But guys, and I mean, and even more to be a Batman fan, you got Moon Knight, which a lot of people are just like, that's Marvel's Batman, which they're first off very dumb for saying that.
Well, like, yes, but actually no.
Yeah, exactly. But it feels like it's good to be a Batman fan, even if like you're like, okay, well, I don't have my Batman currently on. Let me go to watch some Moon Knight.
Next for Marvel stuff, because you haven't seen Multiverse of Madness yet. We already mentioned Miss Marvel.
Multiverse of Madness.
What's coming up after that?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's actually a great question.
Because I'm trying to think about like what movies coming up.
Well,
we have the trailer
for
for Thor.
You have Thor and Love and Thunder, which is July 8th. So that's not even that fucking far off. Yeah. And then, which I do not believe this is actually coming out on the 22nd in this year. I said the 22nd, but the 2022. I do not believe Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is the next movie that's coming out after that. There's no fucking way, and I know that sounds a little ridiculous, but it's kind of one of those things that you're just like, they've had so many problems with that. If you've heard any of the stories of what's going on with that production,
it's something.
First off, there's no way that movie's good unless they do something fantastic with it. Which did they say? Ryan? I mean, it's Ryan Coogler.
It's still Ryan Coogler.
It's still Ryan Coogler. So I still have hope.
They put themselves in such a hole by deciding not to just recast.
Yeah, no, and I get it. I get it.
But I even said this way back when it was like still fresh on our minds, that like the best way to probably do it is to just leave it alone for a while and then eventually recast when the dust has settled, because you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot even further if you try not to.
Yeah, and it sounds like the girl who plays Siri is getting in trouble a lot for not getting vaccinated, and then also saying stuff about not being vaccinated.
Anti-vax stuff.
And I do think it's funny that Gina Carlo fucking lost her job on Star Wars for saying shit, but like because the girl who plays Shiri is like kind of low key about it, she gets to keep her job and maybe be the next Black Panther. And you're kind of like, so if you just don't be an asshole about it, you get to keep your job, I guess, like you're like,
and that's assuming, I mean, if she keeps fucking around, maybe they'll just shift and be like, you know what? Never mind. M'Baku's the next Black Panther.
Right.
Which
I'd be okay with.
I mean, I want Winston Duke as the Black Panther. And plus it would actually be a nice sort of like character turn compared to him in the first movie.
Yes, exactly. And then after that we have, and this is next year. This is scheduled for February. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which of course I don't get. It's like even you slap Quantumania on it, and I still don't give a fuck. All the guys, I know we don't talk shit on this show, but all the Ant-Man movies suck dick, and I don't care what you say.
Hey, the first movie's not that bad. It's fun. It's fun. It's not an Edgar Wright movie.
No,
it's not an Edgar Wright movie.
That's the thing, but it's not a Peyton Reed movie either. I wouldn't even give credit to Peyton Reed for the good parts of that fucking movie. Like that's Edgar Wright all written all over it. And the only good parts of that movie is the Edgar Wright stuff. Everything else is Peyton Reed just being dumb. I'm sorry. If Peyton Reed or you're a Peyton Reed fan, I don't like your work here,
all
bro.
All the Peyton Reed fans out there, I guess.
And then coming out on my birthday next year, which will be fucking sick, is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And then they're gonna do the Marvels after that, which and there's a little spoiler fucking for Multiverse of Madness for the next confirmed movie after that, so I won't say it. I guess I'll say it, guys. Spoilers. See Multiverse of Madness. I'm gonna say it right now. Fantastic Four has been confirmed for the next movie after that.
Well, they had said that like Fantastic Four was on the agenda for Phase 4 even before we knew Multiverse of Madness was a thing.
Cool. Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not a fucking actual spoiler, which is the reason why I brought up the Office group earlier, by the way. I was fucking pissed when I saw that fucking screenshot. I'm just, sorry. Beside the point, though, show-wise, we have She-Hulk coming up, and that is still scheduled for October, and it was just leaked the other day that it's going to be October, so we'll see. We'll see if that when that happens. We have Miss Marvel, of course, coming up in June 1st. And then there's the Untitled Halloween special that's still floating around, that they're definitely doing a Halloween special for Marvel, but they haven't said what it is or who's in it or what it is, you know?
Okay.
And then there's, of course, for the end this year is the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special, which I'm excited for. Of course, it's James Gunn doing more Guardians of the Galaxy stuff. You're like, okay, I'm fine with it. Yeah. It'll be funny if they include Thor in it too, you know? And then Secret Invasion after that, Ironheart, Armor Wars, and an Untitled Wakanda series is all the stuff that is confirmed at the moment.
Okay.
Now, of course, we already said Ironheart, it might be a huge miss, same as Miss Marvel might be a huge miss. Ironheart's a cool hero concept. The books have been awful. Like even with Bendis behind it, it was kind of like,
it was Bendis trying to capture that same magic that we had with Miles, and it just didn't work. Like the two standouts were Miles and Miss Marvel. Those were like the two ones that like really hit as far as like new generation of like heroes taking on an old mantle. Ironheart, nah,
wasn't it? I am excited for Secret Invasion. I don't know what to expect from that show, but it's got a great cast, so you know, like it's one of those things that you're like, okay. I am super excited for She-Hulk, though. I will say that like it looks great. It looks awesome. I'm excited for more Hulk. You know, I just want more Hulk.
I just want them to like put all the Hulk shit that they haven't been able to do just in She-Hulk. I mean, we had Abomination show up for 2 seconds in Shang-Chi.
And he's cast in this latest one, so in She-Hulk, so we'll see what they're doing with that. But he's in it. Abomination's supposed to be in it. But basically, guys, that's the future. So we'll definitely, unless Miss Marvel is an absolute shit show, we'll do a whole episode on it. And if it is a whole shit show, we'll tell you about it. We just won't do an episode on it.
It'll be brought up like in tandem with something other.
Yes, we'll be like, okay, talking about other things.
Because we didn't do an episode on Eternals.
Yes, exactly. And and that's for good reason there. Even if I enjoyed it sort of, it's still not good, you know? Like it's one of those things that my review of that has changed so much, like letting it sink in is just being like, I liked what I saw on screen. Is it a good movie? No. Is it fun? Sure. Like you're like if you're not an Eternals guy, or you've never read like Neil Gaiman's Eternals, will you connect with this? Probably not. You know, like you're like, but you know, I enjoyed what I saw and had a good time with it. But
it's the MCU, so there are worse movies.
Yes,
let's stop acting like Eternals is like the worst thing the worst offense they've ever done. When like the Iron Man sequels
Thor
are right
2
there.
and Iron Man 2 fucking exist, guys. Like, let's be real here.
Plus Thor 1's not that great.
Yeah, anyway. But Thor 1 at least has like, you know, Kenneth Branagh doing some shit, you know, like Thor 2's just
even
nothing.
With Thor being stuck in a desert with shenanigans for most of it.
Yeah, but Thor 2's nothing, you know. It even adds the action that Thor 1 didn't have, and it's still nothing, you know. Like, and that's really that's worse to me.
Well, that's the thing. And then Ragnarok is fun, but it's shallow. So all the Thor movies have kind of squandered it.
Which
Ragnarok is held up because it has like that Taika Waititi charm.
Yes.
But even then, like,
I will say I've watched that the most. I've watched, 3 the most out of all the Thor movies. I've, other than one, I think one I watched a bunch when it first came out, but that's it, you know, like, so I've watched 3 the most out of those, but like still, you know, you're like, it's still not it. You know, like it's still
Yeah.
a little, which I'm hoping
it's
that
weird that
Love
Thor's
and
the only
Thunder
one.
fills in. You know,
That's what I was about to say. It's weird that like Thor is the only one to get a fourth movie, and I feel like it's been one of the more squandered potential series. It's just one of
that's
those ones
because
where,
it's
like, they
still
really just
it
don't
keeps
know
making
what
money.
to do with Thor. And that and Ragnarok was sort of kind of like a really, really soft like reboot or like recontextualization. So sure.
But the thing is, even with, you know, like them being notoriously not great, Thor 1, 2, and 3 made money, you know, like, and I think that can't be said for every Marvel sequel, you know, that they just continuously made money on top of each other, you know, like with Thor 3 being the most successful. But it's like it's one of those things that like that doesn't happen for everyone. So it's good that they like were like, okay, we're gonna do this now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going into Love and Thunder expecting it to be fun, but it to not actually be not actually be representative of the Jason Aaron run.
Yes, I would. Yeah, if you're a big fan of like the God Butcher arc, I don't believe it's gonna be that. But will it have tasting spices of that? Yes. Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
Gore's in it, so it'll have that.
And Christian Bale's playing Gore, so you're kind of like, okay,
sure. I don't think it's gonna go like the 3 Thors route, like, you know, the young naive one and
oh my God,
modern day and like
that,
old
though.
Odin.
And they're like sort of setting that up in the fucking trailer with showing off the young Thor, and you're kind of like, Kid Thor, and you're kind of like, do it.
And also
guys.
like Jane Foster Thor is there, but I doubt that they're gonna go into the subplot where like she has cancer.
Yes,
I doubt that. So it's like, yeah, you have sprinklings and you have like the superficial stuff about the Jason Aaron run. I don't think you're actually going to get into like why that fucking run rules.
Well, who knows? To be fair, Wakiki is a guy who knows where the heart of the story is, and the heart of Jane Foster having Thor and Thor letting Jane Foster keep it is because of the cancer. So I do think he might keep that because it feels very real that like that's something that Thor would see and be like, okay, I can't take the Thor mantle back because it will kill this woman I love, you know, like, so it's one of those things that I think you're right. They could just be like, fuck that. But you know, this is from the guy who did fucking, oh my God, why can't I remember it's like this is the guy who did
Jojo Rabbit,
Jojo Rabbit. That's it. I was gonna say Jojo Rabbit. It's like if anything, the man knows how to pull on the heartstrings, and that might be the way to pull on the heartstrings more than. But just
that's
like,
easier
Thor's
to do
depressed.
when you're working on something unrelated to the Marvel machine.
Yes, very true. But basically, we'll see, guys. We're
if you take anything away from this complete side tangent is that you should read the Jason Aaron run of Thor. It's fantastic.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I will give the thumbs up to that. But basically, rating for Moon Knight. I wouldn't say pre-order it, but it's definitely a rating of get it. You know, like it's not wait for a sale. I would say, and to put it into streaming terms, that means go watch it right now. It does not mean you should have been watching it day of every time, but this is definitely a series that if you're a Marvel fan, and even if you're not a Marvel fan, this is a worthy watch. And it's fun.
As someone who didn't really watch it weekly, it was a good binge.
Yes. I will say I watched it mostly weekly. I think it was better as a binge with the final 2 episodes. If I had to like wait, I would have been like, but I will say it worked. It had great cliffhangers to hang on every episode, so it definitely worked as that weekly thing. But I think it will work better as a binge now. So yes, go now, just demolish the series. It's very short, and I would say give it a ton of support because I want more. I want more Moon Knight, and I want more stories like this where it's like we're doing an origin, but it's not an origin. You know, like we're doing this completely different character from the MCU continuity right now. That's what I want more of, you know, because Marvel Universe is deep, motherfucker, deep, and I want it. Now, one thing I know this doesn't talk about, I haven't seen Multiverse of Madness, but my one thing that I will say that I want now that Multiverse of Madness is out, and now that we've seen Moon Knight and all the Egyptian gods, and there's some time travel going on with Searching the Night Skies. Give me 1602. Give me 1602. I don't give a fuck what you say. Talk to Neil Gaiman. Fucking find out for me. I want 1602 is one of my favorite Marvel books, and I feel like we're close, man. We're fucking close. We're like there, like we're almost there.
1602 would be pretty sweet. I mean,
man, that would be dope. Especially, how good would Tom Hiddleston be as? Not Tom. Well, first off, yes, Tom Hiddleston would be great in like the 1602 Loki role. But how good would Tom Holland be as 1602 Spider-Man? Like, I'm just saying. I'm just fucking saying. Let's do this now. Like I know that would be weird and might turn off a lot of people. But if you put enough Marvel characters in it, like 1602 is supposed to have, it will work. Like it will fucking fly.
And I think if you feel like it's too ridiculous, like Disney Plus is a good place to put it as like a mini series, be it live action or animated. Like you want to do 1602, you could do it there. You could even do crazy shit like the 2099 books or stuff. It's like just go super fucking cheesy.
I would absolutely love a 2099 like Disney Plus show.
Or like a Marvel Noir line would be sick.
Don't even say that. I want that so bad now. It's like they already introduced Spider-Man Noir into the Spider-Verse. So come on, let's get the rest of them. Let's fucking do the rest of them, because Noir was great and it's fun and it's stupid and might as well have fun with it. I, as a guy who loves Noir, I'm like, yeah, do it. Do it. Don't be chickens. Fucking do it. And I think that's kind of what we're getting to now is what I'm really trying to say with this side tangent is that like we're getting to this like ridiculousness of comics where we can start to do the most ridiculous of these, like where we can like kind of be like, okay, 1602, we're all just jumping time and we all think that it's this time, I feel like we've gotten to that place, especially with Multiverse of Madness. So which will be soon an episode. I will try to go see it as soon as possible. But that's pretty much what I'm saying with the side tangent. But thank you guys. We do have coming up. We will eventually finish the Y the Last Man. We have.
Or you will.
I will finish it. But we'll finish the episodes. We'll definitely do a Multiverse of Madness episode, and what was the other one? Oh, and we have Yankee Doodle Dandy coming up as we continue our AFI Top 100 list. Which actually I was quite surprised by Yankee Doodle Dandy, so that'll be fun to talk about. And it's got lots to talk about, so I'm excited to do that one. And then after that is for the AFI list is Blade Runner. So so it goes Yankee Doodle Dandy and Blade Runner, and then Do the Right Thing, which are 3 movies I'm really fucking excited to talk about. They're some of my favorites. So well, not Blade Runner, but Do the Right Thing is. But we'll talk about that. That's why it's going to be a great episode when we talk about Blade Runner finally. It's going to be like Deshaun finally being like, no. And I'm gonna be like, no. We're gonna rewatch it, don't worry. I won't have like film school fucking opinions. I'm gonna rewatch Blade Runner. I don't know which cut. We'll have to decide which cut we should watch to review to see which one we want. But that's gonna be the fun of that episode.
Maybe theatrical and final, just spread out so it doesn't feel repetitive.
Yes, it's 2 things. So, guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you for supporting the show lately. It's been we've been going up in numbers, and I fucking love that. So, thank you so much. Please, make the algorithm do its thing. Hit the buttons, subscribe, do all that shit. And be sure to check out GalaxyGeek.com, where all these episodes are video and audio version if you want to see our beautiful faces, or if you just want to hear us in the car while you're driving, which to be fair, is quite the way to listen to us. I think we sound pretty fucking good in the car. And definitely check out our independent, which we have a Warp Shelf Facebook page and we have a Galaxy Geek Facebook page. If you really want, we have individual socials. We have Instagram and Twitter. I'm Yep Frank on there.
Monokarika.
And then I also have Yep Gundam. If you like Gundam, I have tons, and I'm building more. I'm in the middle of a Helios right now, the Gundam Helios, and I'm posting about my new Gundam here. This little thank you guys for the support. Thank you for listening to the show. And for supporting everything we do. I really do appreciate it. I don't know how to sound more genuine, but I fucking appreciate it. I really do. We appreciate everyone listening to this. If you've listened this long, I'm incredibly amazed because we went on 2 fucking weird tangents at the end there. But thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
We'll see you next time.
Adios.